welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be making a garlic whole wheat bread. And so today we have around 5 cups of flour. We're going to be using 2 teaspoons of honey. We got 2 cups of warm water around 100 degrees, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 3.5 teaspoons of yeast, and a teaspoon of black pepper, and 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And so in a separate bowl, you're going to be needing to put together the warm water, around 2 teaspoons of honey, the yeast, and you're going to need to spread it around. You're going to need to grab a fork, and you're going to need to kind of whisk it together and let it stand for 5 minutes just to make sure that the yeast is still alive. This step is optional if you know that your yeast is still alive, but it's always a safe measure just to check. And just let it rest for 5 minutes covered. And so once you've let the yeast bloom for 5 minutes and you can tell that there are clearly some bubbles in the water, you can go ahead and add in the salt and the pepper and the oil. And then you can slowly begin to add in the flour, making sure not to over flour the dough just yet. So just add in a little bit, and with your hand begin mixing it. A little bit more. Gonna begin to start coming together. And once you've added in all the flour, you can go ahead and begin using both your hands. And you're just gonna need to knead this until it begins to come together. And you can always add some more flour just in case the dough is too wet. But generally the dough, it needs to be kind of wet. The dough should kind of look like this. It should still kind of cling to your hands a little bit, but come away a bit clean, but it still leaves a little bit. And what you're going to need to do is let this rest. And so now we're taking out the dough, and it's been going for a little while now, about an hour and a half. And I had some water, hot water, so in the oven so that it could help it steam. So then now, after it, should have risen a good amount, just like so. And then now what you're going to do is you're going to kind of punch it, press it down, and just kind of knead it back onto itself. And then once you're done with this step, you're going to need to transfer it into glass bowls, since glass is the best material to do this rising in. And you can store this bread inside of your fridge for up to a week. And for the recipe we're going to be making a garlic bread, and it'll be really good. And this amount of dough yields 3 breads. I've been kneading this for around 10 minutes, and if you just smell into the bowl, this smells so good. I love baking, but I also love cooking. And so once you're done kneading the dough, you're going to need to set this bowl to the side, and you're going to need to get your glass bowls. And I like to divide it into thirds for the recipe. So I'm going to just put it in here, and I'm just going to grab a knife and divide it into thirds. This is one. And now I'm just going to put it into this glass bowl. And I'm going to cut the other 2. So then, kind of put them into the center. Set them in the middle. Then, you just put the lid on. And you can set this into the fridge for a week. So once you've let your bread rest in the fridge for a week, you can go ahead and start baking it. And right here I have a pan with aluminum paper, and I'm gonna be putting it in the oven, and I'm gonna be preheating the oven at 550 with the pan inside of the oven. And so we're just trying to get it as hot as your oven can hold. And so mine holds 525 degrees Fahrenheit. And so now we're just gonna let it preheat. So these are the 3 batches that I've had in the fridge for a week. And so now we're just gonna take them out, and we're just gonna carefully grab them, making sure that they're not sticking to the bowl. And we're gonna try and grab them and put them onto whatever type of surface you have. So then now it should feel very supple and moist. And so if you've let it rest for a week, it should kind of have these types of structures inside of the bread. All these different strands. That's the gluten forming while it's resting. So then, what you're going to try and do is you're going to try and stretch it out. Then, you can use a rolling pin, or if you don't have one, you can just use your hands and try to stretch it out as thin as you want, but preferably thin enough so that it's a very wide piece of bread. Then I'm going to use this rolling pin. I'm just going to try and spread it out. So I'm spreading it to about, I would say, like 1 1/4 feet, just about. You're going to grab your oil, and you're just going to kind of drizzle it onto your hand. And then you're going to kind of just spread it onto the dough. Oil will result in a really nice and crunchy bread. And so now that it's fairly well oiled, you're going to grab some salt, and you're going to grind it on top. Then you're going to be grabbing some pepper. Then finally some garlic powder. Spreading it on. Just a nice tiny layer. You don't want the garlic to burn. So then now the dough is done, and you're going to oil up your other hand with a little bit more, just like so. And if my handy dandy assistant could open up the oven, we're going to put this into the pan that's been preheating. So now we have this lightly oiled pan, and you're going to need to really carefully and really quickly grab the dough and just plop it on down. Get it spread out, make sure it's fairly even on all sides, and enjoy. And just let it bake for 12 to 15 minutes or until it's nice and golden brown. Now that the bread is done after around 12.5 minutes of baking, we're gonna take it out, and should have a nice and golden color. Just like this. Should smell amazing when you take it out of the oven. So then, you're just gonna take it out. Make sure it hasn't stuck. Move it. And just let it rest so that we can cut into it later. Hope you enjoy.